Let me ask you a question. What do you have to do to keep people around? I mean, I hope the answer is nothing. I just love them and they love me back. But how often is that in the world? You see, just imagine this. Just imagine me and you, whoever's watching this, me and you have a friendship. I hope that friendship looks something like, hey, do you want to hang out? Great, let's hang out. Oh, you don't want to hang out? No, that's fine, maybe later. Right? No compulsion. We enjoy each other's company. We're independent, but we choose to be together. You know, it's that combination of a strong connection, strong bit of love, and rules, boundaries. You know, there's things like I'm not going to do. I'm not just going to show up to your house unannounced, and you're not going to show up to mine. And if I tell you no, you're not going to get butthurt about it and complain to me about it. You're not going to guilt me into doing things. And our love is free of compulsion. It's free of rules. It's free of obligations. Just because I give you a gift doesn't mean you're obligated to give me one back. Give me one if you want to. Well, that's a good relationship. That's a fairly good, decent relationship, right? But what happens when we don't have a relationship? How would you keep people around if you can't trust them to just be around because they want to? Well, we have something, and this is from the 60s. A guy by the name of Cartman and a few others created this thing called the drama triangle back in the 60s, and it is an effort to understand human relationships through what's called game theory. And here's the basic idea, right? Human relationships, they're kind of like sports, kind of like a game. And if you can look at the rules, you can see what's going on. Now, if I went to a soccer game, I could probably guess the rules just based on observing it, without even having a printed list, right? I would know what out of bounds looked like. I could tell that people are trying to score goals. I could see there's an attack and a defense. I could see that you can't use your hands, but you can use your feet, right? There's rules, but there's definitely a game going on, and the rules are what helps the game flow. If there weren't rules, it would just degenerate into chaos. And frankly, if there were too many rules, but there wasn't a game to be played, nobody would want to play. So just like soccer, relationships have rules. And if you can mentally take a step back and look at it and try to define the rules, sometimes things become a bit clear about what game you're playing, because you might not be in a relationship like I just described a little earlier. You might be in one of these. Well, let me describe these. These are 3 different stances that people take in order to keep somebody. And I would say that it is primarily driven by a thing called shame. Now, I'm not going to go into it because shame's a difficult concept, but basically it's fear of social exclusion. Like it's a lack of self-worth. Like I'm not good enough that somebody would just love me. Why would somebody just love me? I have to make somebody love me. I have to make somebody respect me. I have to make somebody care. Right? And the more shame that somebody has, the more likely they are to try on one of these rules. And by the way, I do think these roles are, I would say they're mostly determined by gender and by personality. These aren't arbitrary. They often lean towards who you are as a person, and they tend to be perversions of who you really are. Not a real thing, but once again, a stance that you're taking. Let me start with this one. These ones do not look nearly as good. These are the bullies. These are what's called the persecutors. These ones who basically say, hey, I don't think I'm good enough. People aren't just going to stick around. I need to invade people's territory. I need to make people pay attention. I need to be super assertive and aggressive. I need to be demanding and play the expert. And the people are too polite to tell me no, or the people who don't have enough sense of self, so they just kind of let me do what I want to do, they stick around. Well, look at me. I got relationship stability. They tend to be interested in things like control and dominance. They tend to be somewhat judgmental, have a lot of opinions, like they're the experts. They tend to invade people. They tend to be the ones showing up to houses unannounced. And boy, you know, if you let it happen once, well, why didn't you let me do it a second time? Like, aren't we friends? They tend to sometimes be out of control and even use that, you know, because they're trying to draw in, well, a rescuer. You know, somebody to, you know, help them out. Somebody to like temper their temper. Somebody to, you know, be concerned when they get into a drug abuse rage and need somebody to tolerate them. Right? Rescuer is another one of these stances that I've talked about. Once again, the rescuers believe, right or wrong, because they look good on paper, that they're not good enough that somebody's going to love them. They have to go and earn it. They got to be the dependable one. They got to be the helper. They got to be the one that goes and pursues everybody and takes care of everybody else, because then maybe somebody will take care of me. And frankly, I mean, these are most of the people that show up to my counseling office because they're burned out and they want to stop, and they're the ones often making the others pretty safe and comfortable. Well, so the rescuers, what do they look like? They're usually pretty helpful, dependable people, but they're fueled by guilt, by pity. It's not out of the goodness of their heart, although there is some of that. It's a lot of guilt, a lot of pity, a lot of like, I just feel responsible. Like, it's not even a choice. A lot of needing to be needed, a lot of codependency, and a lot of like placating, like I better not push back, I better not say no, I better not make that person mad, right? And when a persecutor and a rescuer get into a relationship, you often find somebody who's dominant and somebody who's just being really polite. And somehow they construct a relationship where they can have a harmony, and this one gets to be the good person, the one who tolerates his crap, the one who, etc. And this person often gets to be the one who can just show up unannounced and get what he wants, and they have a little spat, but things pretty much stay stable, right? Because if we didn't play those games, if we didn't adopt those roles, what do we have? What, I have to love you and you have to love me and we have to respect each other? What the hell's that? Like, that's going to happen. Third one is something called the victim. This is often in colloquial terms. When people say playing the victim, that's what they're doing. They're playing this role of the victim. And frankly, a lot of these people have been victimized. They have suffered. They have suffered maybe at the hands of multiple people. So there's some real pain there. But this is something where they've noticed they've taken a stance, where they've, say, launched out a Facebook post saying that they're going to hurt themselves or that they're down on their luck. And look at this. All this attention comes in, all this support, all this praise, all this attaboys. These people tend to lean into their helplessness and their irresponsibility. These are the people who forget to do their homework and then, oh boy, it's a crisis. This is due tomorrow and I need your help and I'm going to fail without you. And then, oh, look at that, there's a rescuer and they feel good because they get to help me. And, this is somebody who's, I really don't want to make a lot of decisions. And, woe is me, my life is crap and I need somebody to come in and, just kind of tell me what to do and kind of be dominant. And, you wouldn't think that people like this, and they don't. At least they don't like having to do this, but they do like the benefits of having a stable relationship. And these people also tend to be passive. It's like they're just in the backseat of their life, and they're just waiting for somebody to come in and take the driver's seat from them. Either a rescuer who's, motivated by guilt or pity, or, a persecutor who's more dominant, more maybe charismatic, persuasive, plays the expert. And fifth, they often tend to be afraid. Well, frankly, a lot of this tends to be fueled by fear, if you really look down into it. Fear of losing somebody. Because, once again, what the hell? You mean I have to love you and you have to love me and we're just going to do that? And that's just going to happen out of the goodness of your heart? Like, look, maybe that's going to happen, but I'd rather just do something that's guaranteed to make it happen, because stability is a thing that I crave. Relationships, at the end of the day, they feel like survival mechanisms, because frankly, they kind of are. And so why am I going to place my survival needs at the mercy of somebody who may or may not care about me? That is the question. That is why people do this, I think, at the end of the day. And to their own detriment. Well, here's something interesting too. A lot of this may have sounded like codependency, like personality disorders even. And I would say that's right. Actually, when I look at narcissistic personality disorder, which typically happens more in men, it is a persecutor and a rescuer. It is somebody embodying both of those roles, like very dominant, very much take control, take charge. I'm playing the expert, I'm never wrong, but you better need me. I'm still providing you something. And I'm looking for someone that's taking kind of like the childlike, the victim status. That's somebody who I love. That's somebody who I safe within a relationship, because as long as they're playing that role, I can control them and love them, right? That's often what a narcissist is looking for, which is why in the beginning of a relationship, they can come off as very charismatic and powerful, but also very loving and giving, and then they just kind of pull that back, making you emotionally dependent on them. And then when they pull that back, you kind of stay there because you've become dependent on them and you don't have as much bandwidth as you used to. Part of me thinks that this is just a perversion of the provider-protector role that men are typically having, right? Just a perversion of that because, hey, you know, most husbands do shoot for this basic thing called provider, meaning I provide, I give, I rescue, I help, and a protector, meaning I have some dominance that I use for good, not for evil, not to control you, but to help you and to defend you, right? So it's kind of a perversion of that. Even some people who have narcissistic personality disorder, even those tendencies might even say, like, don't hang out with that friend. They don't have your best interest in mind. I have your best interest in mind. Look at all the things that I've given you. Why would you throw that away? Right? Like, it's a perversion of something good. And by the way, when you understand personality and personality disorders, I would prefer that everybody just look at them as something that's just a perversion of something good. Something that's been twisted. Something that's been twisted ever so slightly over time so that the relationship becomes toxic. Because frankly, the relationship usually doesn't start that way, or else it just would never have happened. Second thing, borderline personality disorder. Here's a good way of explaining this mental whiplash. They often appeal to these two dualities, and they are dualities. Here we have somebody who's an expert and never wrong and dominant and just, I don't need anybody. And here we have somebody who is playing the victim, who is, oh, I'm lost without you, I need you, don't leave. I just can't handle. This is the I hate you, don't leave me matrix. This is another way to look at it as a demanding baby, right? Because a lot of times people that have borderline personality disorders, you know, 5 to 10% of the time they throw temper tantrums that'll look like a lot like demanding babies, as if a toddler is trying to tell a parent what to do. Very confusing, very much mental whiplash. Like, what are you? Are you somebody who needs my help, or are you somebody who never needs my help? Are you somebody who gets to judge me, or are you somebody who's just, oh, I'm so powerful that I could just throw you over with just a look? Like, who are you? Like, I don't get it. Like, are you strong or are you weak? Or are you just kind of weak when you need to be weak, and then you're strong when you need to be strong? You know, like, it's very confusing. But once you understand that the whole point is to target a rescuer, this makes sense, right? They want you to play this role. Rescue me. This is, and I'll say it, I can do bad all by myself, right? I can do bad all by myself. Oh, I'm going to be by myself. Nobody likes me, right? No, I'm looking for a rescuer, man. I'm looking for a rescuer to put up with my crap, you know, when I'm too dominant, to get my way, but then also to help me unconditionally whenever I need, just like you would an infant child. Right? Third thing I would say, and this is not as common, I find, there is a rescuer-victim matrix that looks a lot like dependent personality disorder. And these tend to be sad cases, but they rarely come to counseling. Usually, and I see this most in some of the older ladies with really, really dominant husbands that kind of play this, what you might say, like a submissive housewife kind of role, right? Like the nurturing, submissive type wife, right? Well, the perversion of that is somebody who doesn't have a voice and who just kind of rescues and tolerates a tyrant. And some of these ladies, and it's nice to see, they often outlive their husbands, and then when this goes away, they're like a different person. It's like they get a new lease on life, which is great. I just wish they didn't have to play this in the beginning. And I'll say they don't have to play this. I understand how people used to be married for survival reasons. And so they just did whatever they had to survive. Whatever all this kind of stuff that came on, they just tolerated. And they did not deviate from the game almost ever. I understand that, but this is the modern age. It's not required anymore. And shoot, if you have strong family ties, and if you have a job, and if you have options, you don't have to do this. And I would suggest, after all that I've explained over here, I would say, are you doing any of this? Because it's not good. You may have a stable relationship, just not a good stable relationship. Like, hey, like we can look at a country like North Korea and think that it's pretty stable, but at what cost? Right? Wouldn't you rather play a game where both of us win? So much so that it doesn't even feel like a game? Something to meditate on. And hey, if you're playing a game, try to stop. But know this, when one of these moves in a relationship, the other one usually reacts with strong fear in the beginning until there's some homeostasis and there's finally a good relationship. But I've seen countless relationships that are like this, that one person changes and the other one has to change as a result. A lot of breakups too, but also some growth. And when people finally love each other and they're loved back, that's wonderful. That's a wonderful thing because we're not playing games anymore. Well, I hope I've been helpful for you guys today. And please, if you know somebody who fits the bill, please don't name names. Keep this confidential, right? But tell me, what are these people like, and do you have this kind of relationship in your life? Tell me in the comments. I'd love to help you out. All right, take care.